Hello, here is the astrology chart for the full moon in September on the 6th, 2017. The exact time of the sun and moon opposition, which is a full moon point, was at 12:02 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So here we have the grand fire trine that's been ongoing and now just adding more elements into the fire trine. We have this opposition with the sun and the moon. The moon, who's also conjunct Neptune, and then the moon and sun opposition being squared by Saturn. So those are the main things I'm going to talk about. I might throw in this element we have with Pluto, who's trine to the sun, seeing that that's everything that's connected to the sun and moon at the point of a full moon are considered to be the main features of the full moon, and then all the other things going on the side sort of support the storyline of what's happening with the sun and moon. So, looking at this opposition, the sun and moon are both at 13 degrees. So, the moon 13 degrees of Pisces and the sun at 13 degrees of Virgo. And this is the axis, the Pisces Virgo axis, which is about our sacred work, Virgo being the mundane, day to day tasks, things that we do to keep our bodies healthy, to support the rhythms and timings of our physical body and the earth. And then Pisces being the part of us that is universally loving, compassionate. I always think of the energy of Kuan Yin and Jesus, although Jesus I feel like was more of a radical, badass, loving, compassionate sort of archetype or figure in our collective conscious memories and in our bodies and minds. So with this axis of Pisces and Scorpio, the things that come up are, how are you taking care of your physicality, your day-to-day tasks, around your natural rhythm and the natural timings of your physical body and of the environment, not just your physical body's environment, but also the Earth's environment, Mother Earth, being us being a replica of the Mother Earth. So the way that we are suitors of the Earth and of our own self, our own body, our mind, our psyche. So everything that is involved with taking care of those things, I see that being represented by Virgo. And then Pisces, how are you from this healthy state that we've been taking care of our physicality and our structure, the timings and the rhythms of our earth and our body. Pisces is how are you now going forth into the collective and sort of, from our healthy state, because that's what Virgo wants is for our health and wellness in all of the every aspect of our life. So I'm doing this because in my mind I'm saying, okay, your sexuality, your relationships, your food you're eating, the way you earn money, what you're doing with your money. It's like every single category. You can see it like a layout, or sometimes people like to use mind mapping, where they're taking all their things and putting it into a mind map on a blank sheet of paper. Some people like graphing and charting. So the way that graph and chart represents your life, and you've got this healthy version of it now because you actually have looked into each one of those things, which is what Virgo season is offering us, a time for us to look through all of these aspects of our life. And then Pisces is how we're going and sharing our heart, sharing that sacred heart that from our wholeness and completeness of Virgo. Virgo is the priest, the priestess. It often reminds me of that interdependent, autonomous, sovereign, priest and priestess. And from that state, the way that we're going to go out into the community, into the global community, and we're infusing life force, energy, and love into, the words that keep coming into my mind are restoring the heart. And if you watched the video for the last moon, the new moon, I talked about the movie Moana, and I've been really, there's so much juicy imagery in that movie for what we're going through, what we're being asked to do at this particular time of our life's cycle together on Earth. So restoring the heart of Tafiti, restoring the heart of our Earth, just overall in general. It's not specific to one nation or the way we've divided the earth up. It's not specific to those divisions. It's specific to the wholeness and the unity of our earth. That's Pisces. So that's what this axis is really about. And so the way that it is on your own personal chart, this is my chart. I have a couple other ones here. So let me start with some other ones. This one is somebody who was born on April 2nd in Brazil. And he has not a ton of action going on where the moon is, and where the sun is. You see the sun down there, the moon up there. And there's not a lot going on. So we use a 10-degree orb. So anything that's within 10 degrees of this orbit, we would consider to be important in what's happening. So anything that's with it, a conjunction, anything that is opposing, and then I like to look at anything that's square. So this is how I divide the chart up, basically draw lines through it at the 13-degree mark for this particular moon phase, and then see what you have within those perimeters. So for him, he's got his rising sign square to this full moon activation. His rising sign is Gemini at 17 degrees. So the Pisces full moon, we could say, is activating or doing like trigger point therapy. That whole triggering, it's like triggering that part of him that is emerging into his Gemini school. And this is also his relationship axis. So this could be pointing to something with his relationships, the way that he relates to his inner beloved and the way that he relates to his outer beloved. He's also got Juno there, which is known as a sort of marriage indicator. So relationships being on the front line for him at this full moon could be something for him to look at. This next chart is, her name is YouTube Maria. That's what I have her saved at on my database. But born on May 8th in England. So she has a ton of things going on. So a lot of things in this pathway of the sun and moon. Again, what we do is just divide the chart up from 13 degrees that direction and then 13 degrees that direction and see what you have in that pathway. So for her, it's so much, pretty much at this full moon point, she's probably feeling some things from the past coming up in talking karma, addictions, and then also the opposite of that, which is where you're going, the future. It's sort of like this meeting of, because it's her south and north node, the meeting of past self and future self, with a little flavor of Pluto, destruction. So it's sort of like a mini death and rebirth in this particular chart. So that would be the flavor of this full moon for her, and some other things. I'm not going to spend too much time. I mostly wanted to just give you the idea of how you can cut up your own chart to look at it. Here's my chart. So there's pretty much everything, because I have all this stuff in Pisces: South Node, Sun, Vesta, my inner masculine, Mars. And then over here with the sun, I have Saturn and the North Node conjunct each other, being super activated by the sun because they're right. Um, we use a 10-degree orb, but for me, this is exact. And so basically, it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. The overall flare of the full moon in Pisces and Virgo is about what I discussed in the first few minutes. And then depending upon what is on your chart, it's going to activate different parts of your life. So when I was describing the way with the Virgo splitting up different things of our life, our sexuality, our money, our food, our relationships, our work, and the way that we divide that up, you can do the same thing with the astrology chart and see each part of the chart as a different part of your own life, and finding where the full moon is hitting you on your chart, and then looking at those items directly, pulling apart yourself in a way and asking specific questions to those parts of yourself, and then putting it back together. And this is called alchemy. So astrological alchemy, we call it. I call my readings tantric astrology readings because we're the same thing, elaborating deep and vast amounts of information. So everything about you and your life, and putting it back together in this tapestry that's unique to you. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that whatever you have in that pathway, it's going to activate more than just what's there. It's like if I have, I'm not going to get into that. It goes a little bit deeper, and you can use the chart in many, many different ways. So let's go back to the full moon. This is just the chart of the moment. And what I was saying is that there's aspects, So the sun and moon are going this direction, but they're being aspected by Saturn. So this is a square to Saturn. So this whole complex is being activated right now. So it's not ever just the full moon or the new moon. It's, usually connected to other things. So for this full moon, it's got a Saturn complex, meaning that Saturn, who is going through its own transformation from being known as this sort of patriarchal dictator, boss, ruler, president, monarch, not monarch, the forefathers. And it's going from that into being, we don't know yet. It's changing. So with the full moon being square to Saturn, we're looking at the revolution of what we have known as Saturn, as being the one that's setting the structure and the form, and in regards to our dreams and our vision. So I'm getting scrambled on my words because I have all this imagery of what I'm sensing and seeing on the inside, and trying to use this chart to sort of get that out. Neptune is the planet of dreams and visions. And Neptune is with the moon right now in the sky. And at the moment of the full moon, Neptune and the moon were conjunct, exact with each other. So square to Saturn. This is giving us this imagery of creating our structures and forms with this vision of reality, and with this sort of from the dream, from the vision, being able to create structure and form from that, from your intuition. Often, and what we have now as our form and structure, government and sort of foundation of our I can only speak for our U.S. government, because hopefully in other places, actually what I'm getting is like, this has been the way we set our structure and form, is from logic, from reasoning, and from numbers and money. So the way I'm seeing it now is like not to completely throw that away, or maybe it is to completely throw that away, and to recenter our way of setting structure into this new, more intuitive framework. That's going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people who've been used to running on logic and numbers and money and strict rules that don't have, when I was in the Navy, something that I used a lot as a phrase when I was the leading petty officer, case by case. I never, I'm not going to use the word never, but it was more my intention to do case by case rather than by the book, because the book is not intuition. Somebody already wrote that book, and that framework may have been good for the time that somebody else wrote that structure and framework in that book, but and so a guideline, as opposed to having just a rule that we have to do it this certain way. So that's sort of the Saturn aspect going on with the full moon. The next thing that I mentioned was the fire trine. So we have this fire trine. We have lots of fires going on right now in the U.S. and solar activity. We just went through the solar eclipse, which the solar eclipse effects are 6 to 9 months. It's going to be ongoing with the heat and intensity of, whatever is in play. So using the astrology as a way of sort of understanding what's in play and then being able to co-create with the intelligence and the wisdom from the above. So down here, we have the North Node, Mercury, and Mars. So this is all anchoring this bottom point of the fire trine, and not that it's really the bottom, because this is actually superimposed over us as the sky is the above. And then anchored over here in Uranus, who's known as the wild card, change agent, unpredictable element. And that's anchored in Aries. And then over here, Saturn, who is in Sagittarius, Saturn being that part of us that is the inner authority, setting our own structure, making our own rules, and also the outer authority, setting the structure, making the rules. In Sagittarius, what gives it this sort of forging, evolving, and sort of spiritualized essence to the inner authoritarian. And then the sun, Mars, Mercury, and the North Node, all down here, anchoring the bottom part of this trine. So Mars actually crept over to 0 degrees of Virgo, but it's still in the fire trine, because it's right in the energy of it, although it is moving into Virgo. So we would focus more on Mercury and the North Node anchoring down that section of the fire trine. So a fire trine is basically giving us this sense of fire, everything that relates to fire. So that intuition that is sudden knowing, without having, like the water intuition comes from emotions and from reflection and the qualities of water. The fire intuition is quick. There's no reason. It's just a knowing, gnosis, you might say. And also it's action oriented. It's creating, it's going out, meeting people, passionate, and can be very destructive because it's fire. Every element has a destructive side to it. So keeping all that in mind, and also finding how this fits on your own personal chart, I feel like is the most important thing. Like, we can look at this collectively and tell this story about the movement of the planets and have this sort of idea about what's happening. But when you put it in reference to your own personal chart, you can see more clearly the way this is affecting you and the way that you are affecting it. So it's always a relationship. There's always a co-creation between the mysteries and our own mystery. So the way my teacher says it that I love so much is that we inform the mysteries as much as the mysteries are informing us. So getting the imagery of what's happening in the sky right now and overlaying it onto your own natal chart can give you a lot of clues about how to engage, what cycles you're in, how to interact with the energy of what's happening in your life and in the collective. So I'll go ahead and stop there. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please like, subscribe. I often will use people's charts who've hired me for astrology readings in the past. I'll often use their charts during other readings that I do for examples. So you'll always get, little brief mini readings. So definitely look at that. I'm offering 50% off all of my astrology readings for the rest of this month because it's my 6-year anniversary. And I always like to offer something to my clients and to my viewers on Instagram and YouTube in appreciation. So thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.